Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we're going to be setting up our first geometry trace so that when we go and look at our gargoyle and we get close enough within range, then sure enough, it prints out the name of the actor that has been hit by the trace. Let's dive in and see how we can do this. So we're finally ready to tackle this sweep single by channel. There was a lot of pieces that we had to have in place to make it work, but finally we're here. So let's have a look at the syntax of this function. So we are in a much better place to understand what was going on here when in these types. So the return value is a Boolean, which basically tells us whether or not we found anything with the sweep. Now, the second argument, as you can see here, it's a reference. It's got this ampersand. And it doesn't matter whether there's a space after the ampersand or a space between the variable name. It's all the same as long as there's an ampersand after the type. It's saying that that type is a reference. And it's a type called an f-hit result. You can see that it's a struct. So this f-hit result is the out hit. That is the result that comes out of the sweep. We can see what things have been hit, and it's a struct because there's multiple different things, pieces of information that can come out of this sweep. Then we have a const f vector reference. So this is taking our start vector by reference instead of copying it. Same with the end vector. Then we've got a rotation. So this is the rotation of the shape using an fquat, which is an alternative struct to using the f rotator. We'll see how we can basically just get put in a zero rotation here because we're using a sphere. It doesn't really matter. The next thing that comes in is the trace channel, and we'll see how to figure out what our trace channel is called in C++. And then we've got our collision shape, which will be the last argument we need to provide, and we'll see how we can create a sphere of a certain radius by doing that. But before we begin, we'll need to know what that radius is and have it configured. So we're going to go over into our grabber.h. We're going to remove these functions we've been using as examples for const references and out parameters, and we're going to create a new U property, which is going to be edit anywhere, and it's going to be a float called the grab radius, and we're going to set that to 1 meter. So let's go over into the C++ now and remove the references to print damage and has damage, and we can remove any of that from the tick component as well, the whole if statement and where we're passing in the damage. Because here we're drawing our debug line, and now we want to make a call to our sweep single by channel. So we're going to type sweep. So we're going to type get world parentheses because we know that this is a function on the uWorld object. Then we're going to do an arrow because we know that getWorld returns a pointer. And then we're going to do a sweep single by channel, like so. And we're going to have to input an out parameter for it to populate as the first argument here. So we're going to create a variable that's going to be empty that will be populated, and it's got to have the right type. So it's going to be an if f hit result, and we're just going to call the variable itself hit result. Put a semicolon at the end because we're not initializing it, we're not giving it any value, but we're going to pass it in for it to be given a value by the sweep single by channel function. So that's our hit result. Then we need to pass in the start and end vectors, which we know are going to be not copied, but taken a reference to. Now we need to populate the rotation, which we can do with a simple fquat : identity, which tells basically that this is a no rotation. That's just a bit of a weird language for it. It's a mathematical speak for meaning that this is no rotation. Next up, we need the trace collision channel. Now, how do we go about finding that trace collision channel? Well, if we go over to the folder that holds our project and we go into config, and then we're going to go to the default engine ini, right click that and go open with Visual Studio Code. And in here, I'd like to search for grabber. So you'll be able to see the collision response channel for the grabber, and it's basically been set up here in the default engine ini. It's only mentioned once in the whole file. and you can see the channel name. This is the channel name in C++. It's not very obvious, but it's ECC Game Trace Channel 2. So we can go ahead and copy that, and then we can go back to our grabber CPP and paste it in here as the trace channel that we want. Now this line's getting rather long, and what we can do to compensate for that is we can actually put each of these parameters on separate lines, or at least spread them out. So maybe the start and end are on the same, the identity quaternion is on one line, the trace channel is on another line, like so. And that just gives us a little bit more space for reading these long argument lists. Now, if we head back to the documentation, we can see that the next thing we need to pass in here is an F collision shape. So we need to construct a shape. Maybe we'll do this as a separate variable up at the top. I'll just do it before the F hit result to make it super clear that the F hit result is actually an out parameter. I'm always going to leave that as the last thing before the call to the function. So we're going to create an F collision shape, which we're going to call the sphere. And we're going to set it equal to F collision shape : make sphere. So this is going to create us a new sphere collision shape, and the argument to this function is the sphere radius, which we have got as the grab radius variable that we've configured as a U property. Put a semicolon on the end of this line, and we can pass in the sphere as our final argument to the sweep channel function and put a semicolon at the end of that line. Now, one more thing is that this function we know returns a Boolean, which is whether we've hit anything. So I'm going to put the result into a Boolean variable called hasHit, and that's what we're going to be using later on in this function. So I'd like to challenge you to print the hit actor's name. So now we've got this sweep happening, we should be able to get some results out of it. So use an if statement to print if we have anything at all. So if that Boolean is true, that's when we're going to print out the actor name. You're going to get the actor that the sphere trace has hit by using the hit result struct. It's got a method on it which you can access with the dot operator because it's a struct and it's not a pointer to the struct. You can do a dot get actor and use the parentheses, and that returns you an actor pointer. Then using the actor pointer, you can get the actor's name using the get actor name or label method. And think about whether you want to use the dot or arrow operator for this. And then compile and test having printed out that actor name and see what you can hit in the scene. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, welcome back. So we're going to start off with creating that if statement. So if has hit, then we're going to put some braces. And we're going to do, first of all, we want to get hold of that actor pointer. So a actor star hit actor is equal to the hit result dot get actor parentheses, like so. Then we're going to do a ulog, and we're going to write hit actor %s, and we can do hit actor, and because it's a pointer here, we can do hit actor arrow get actor name or label, then some parentheses, and because this is a string, we have to put a star at the front of the whole shebang so that it can properly display it in our UE log. Okay, so we now need to just go ahead and compile this. Then once we're in the scene, let's open up the output log and dock it to the layout so we can see it while we play, and hit the play button. And instantly you can see that we are hitting that gargoyle statue. If I turn around and look at something else, you can see, well, it's not very clear whether I'm not hitting anything or whether it's displaying nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an else to our if statement here, put some more brackets, and I'm going to do another ulog. And this time the text is going to say no actor hit. Let's recompile and go and play in the editor. And you can see it now, it's saying no actor hit all the time until I go and start looking at the gargoyle. And now it's saying that the gargoyle is the thing being hit. If I move too far back out of our 4 meter range, you can see that it's saying no actor being hit again. Great stuff. So we have now done a geometry sweep with a spherical object, and we can see that it is indeed reacting only to the actors in our particular trace channel, such as the gargoyle is the only one that we set up at the moment. So that's the only one that it's finding. I'll see you in the next lecture.